Thabo, so those are some of the key issues the president announced a few minutes ago.
Rather key issues there, Nico, being highlighted by the president. We're now joined by the Business Unity South Africa CEO, Cas Coovadia, to give us reaction to that. Cas, first and foremost, the country now moving to adjusted lockdown level 1. The president, in his deliberations with the media yesterday, said by and large, he thinks to a large extent that the economy is on a recovery going back to pre-COVID-19 times. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think, and thanks for having me. We have seen some recovery in some areas. I mean, mining has done well because of the commodity boom. Agriculture is doing reasonably okay. But structurally, we haven't seen a recovery in the economy yet. And the July insurrection put us back further. And even if we get to pre-COVID levels, which lots of people are saying that will probably take us another year or so at least because of the setbacks in July. Remember that pre-COVID, the economy was in recession, so not a good place to be. We need to do much better than that, but we welcome the adjustment to alert level 1. We think that scientifically it is the correct thing to do. We welcome the lifting of the remaining restrictions on alcohol sales. And we also welcome the announcement by the president that the Department of Health is working on electronic vaccination certificates, something that businesses have been calling for quite some time, which will actually help, one, encourage people to be vaccinated, because what we should be doing is we should be saying that if people want to go to sports games or people want to go to other events, they should be vaccinated and they should produce proof of vaccination, and this will help us do that, and it will encourage people to vaccinate.
Mr. Coovadia, when we look at what the announcements are, you spoke about the fact that business is happy because you do get a sense that there's science being followed. But let's just look at the numbers here. 750 people allowed to gather indoors, 2,000 outdoors. Funerals have been moved from 50 to 100. We still don't have any night visuals, still no gatherings after funerals that are being allowed. Does it actually make sense? You know, is there congruency in terms of how these plans are being applied? Because I certainly don't get a sense of that when I look at tonight's announcements and what the scientific justifications for where we are could be.
Yeah, so look, I think it appears to be an anomaly. Like you, I was listening in to you just before you came on. We don't have access to the data. We don't have access to what the rationale is behind these announcements. And I think access to data and making the data public would be a good idea, so that public is taken into confidence. The public doesn't ask questions like the ones you're asking, which I think are correct questions to ask. So I can't answer that question for you. I can only accept that the president has followed the science. But if the government is in a position to release that information, release the data, I think it allays these uncertainties, and it gives the public confidence that we are following the science. But as I said, I don't have access to the data, so I can't tell you much more than that. We've had this ongoing debate with the government, even on the alcohol restrictions, where even in level 2, alcohol was restricted this time round in the third wave, whereas in the first and second wave in level 2, alcohol was not restricted to that extent. And we've been asking for information and data on that, which we still hope to get. But I think it would be good for government to be as transparent as possible on what actually informs this data.
Yeah. Speaking of transparency, let's get to this question. Is easing of regulations enough for what is required for the recovery of this economy? You spoke quite strongly when you were speaking at CSAP quite recently, where you spoke of the lack of urgency in how we are tackling and handling this recovery situation, but also a lack of hard decision-making and a lack of leadership.
Yeah, so we have, as Busa consistently said, that our country finds itself in a serious crisis. We've seen the unemployment figures. We've got high levels of poverty, of inequality. Our country is not growing at a rate that it should be growing at about 1.2% or so at the moment. We have a fiscal deficit. We also a country that's in sub-investment. We've been downgraded to sub-investment rate grading in the early parts of COVID last year, and we seem to have actually forgotten that. So we are in crisis. And in a situation like this, certainly we of the view that the only thing we should be focusing on economically is to create an environment for investment so that both South African investors and global investors feel confident to invest. And on the back of that, to work together to build an inclusive free market economy that will ensure that we create employment, develop skills, and ensure that as many people as possible in this country have a stake in that economy. And that's the only way structurally to deal with the problems we have. And what we've been urging government to do is to recognize the crisis we're in, treat it with the urgency it deserves, take some of the hard decisions to reform the economy. It won't be popular decision. There will be some decision that even business might not be happy with, but take the decisions after some degree of consultation, create some certainty, and indicate unequivocally that we are open for investment. We want the investment, and of that we will structure inclusive growth in this country.
That is Business Unity South Africa CEO there, Cas Coovadia, with us tonight. To continue in a moment, we'll get reaction from the opposition.